You're not hurting because others did something wrong. You're hurting because they didn't do what you thought they should have known. The problem isn't them. It lies in the silent scripts you wrote for them without even realizing. And this truth will shake you. There are truths that, once you dare to confront them, will shake you to your core. Most of the pain, disappointment, and frustration you've carried throughout your life did not actually come from other people. It didn't come from your parents, your spouse, your children, your friends, or your coworkers. It came from something far more silent, far more dangerous. The invisible scripts you wrote in your mind, expecting others to follow them perfectly. And when they didn't, you hurt. But the real tragedy lies not in what others did, but in the silent expectations you've nurtured within yourself for years. Welcome to the Success Lessons channel. This is not where we teach you how to control others or offer tricks to make people obey. Instead, we invite you to embark on one of the hardest, yet most important, journeys. The journey of understanding yourself, releasing control, and learning to live lighter every single day. Have you ever felt disappointed simply because someone forgot to reply to your message? Hurt when your gift wasn't exactly what you hoped for? Upset when your best friend forgot a small detail you once mentioned? At first glance, it seems like others' mistakes caused your pain. But if you look deeper, you'll realize the real root lies in your own quiet, unspoken expectations. You expected them to remember, to understand, to care exactly the way you imagined. And when they didn't, waves of emotions arose: disappointment, frustration, sadness, resentment, coldness, and eventually distance. Slowly, bit by bit, the most important relationships in your life were worn down by unmet expectations. What makes these expectations so dangerous is how quietly they operate. They don't need to be spoken aloud. They live in your mind as simple assumptions. My partner should know what I want. My parents should support me. My friends should remember my birthday. My children should listen to me. But you forget, they are not you. They do not have the ability to read your unspoken thoughts. They live with entirely different experiences, memories, beliefs, wounds, and backgrounds than you do. The more you love someone, the heavier these invisible expectations become. We often mistake this for love. We believe it's care. But if we're honest, much of it is our desire to control, to shape, to mold others to fit our version of how things should be. And that's where the silent tragedy begins. There are wives who feel hurt because their husbands can't recall every small detail of their lives together. Parents who feel disappointed when their children refuse to follow the career path they paved. Friendships that quietly fade after one careless remark didn't meet someone's expectations. Each of these small scratches eventually turn into thick, invisible walls, pushing two hearts further apart, even as they continue sharing the same home, speaking polite words, smiling in photos. We often believe that our suffering comes from others not understanding us. But the truth cuts deeper. We suffer because we refuse to let go of the need for them to understand us and behave exactly as we want. Because if we were truly at peace with their differences, their thoughts, choices, and ways of living, the pain would dissolve like mist. Ironically, there are times you don't even fully understand yourself. There are days you feel suddenly sad for no reason. Moments when you overreact and realize afterward you didn't know why. If you don't fully understand your own emotions, how can you expect others to understand you completely and act perfectly according to your unspoken needs? The journey of releasing expectations doesn't begin by changing others, but by bravely acknowledging this truth. It's your own expectations that have chained you all along. And the moment you face this, you've taken your first steps toward true inner freedom. If this message resonates with something deep inside you, I invite you to subscribe to the Success Lessons channel. Every subscription is a small but powerful encouragement that allows us to keep creating meaningful, insightful, and sincere videos just for you. Before we continue, take a moment to reflect and answer this simple question in the comments below. In your opinion, what causes people more suffering in relationships? A, because others don't understand them. B, because they expect others to understand and act exactly as they wish. Choose A or B and share your answer in the comments section. We read every response, and your insights may very well become valuable guidance for someone else navigating their own emotional crossroads in life. Throughout our lives, most of us grow up with something deeply familiar, yet rarely examined: the invisible expectations we quietly form toward the people around us. These expectations don't arrive loudly. They seep in silently, accumulating day by day, month by month, year by year, until they become such a natural part of how we view the world that we often fail to even recognize they exist. From a very young age, the earliest seeds of expectation are planted in our minds. As children, every time we cried because we weren't allowed to buy a toy, threw tantrums when denied our favorite meal, or sulked when we couldn't wear our favorite outfit, those were the very first moments where we began to expect others to fulfill our desires. Back then, these reactions were merely instinctive, but they became our mind's first lessons on how to demand, to place ourselves at the center, to expect others to understand and comply. As we grow older, these behaviors no longer manifest as public outbursts. We don't stomp our feet in the supermarket or burst into tears over small denials. Yet beneath the surface, the desire for others to intuitively grasp our wants remains alive, often unspoken. We expect partners to remember every detail from conversations. We expect friends to always take our side in disagreements. We hope coworkers will know exactly when we need help without us ever having to say so. Individually, these seem like small things, but together they form a web of intricate, quiet expectations that few people, if any, can realistically meet. The problem lies in our lack of awareness. We often don't even realize we're expecting something. We simply feel hurt, disappointed, or upset when our unspoken wishes go unmet. And instinctively, we blame the other person. They're careless, distant, or disrespectful. Rarely do we stop to ask ourselves, have I actually communicated this need? Am I expecting them to read my mind and intuit my unspoken thoughts? The subtlety of expectations lies in how they often disguise themselves as love. We tell loved ones things that sound caring. I just want what's best for you. I only want our family to be secure. I'm doing this for your future. On the surface, these statements sound well-intentioned, but beneath them often hides a deeper desire. Please follow the plan I've designed for you. Make the choices I believe are best. Walk the path I've paved. And in this way, love becomes tangled with control, often without us realizing it. Even more dangerous is how these long-standing expectations embed themselves in close relationships. The closer we are to someone, the more entitled we feel to demand that they fully understand us. We assume that because we're close, they should automatically know what makes us happy, what upsets us, and what we expect, without needing to be told. But in truth, no one can fully enter another person's inner world without clear, open communication. Countless relationships have broken not because people stopped loving each other, but because of silent expectations building up over the years. A wife feels resentful because her husband fails to notice her exhaustion after long days caring for their children. A husband grows bitter because his wife doesn't understand the financial pressure he silently bears. Parents grow distant from children who don't follow their carefully laid out career paths. Friendships drift apart over small misunderstandings that no one dares to address directly. Strip these situations down to their core, and they all echo one fundamental belief: I expect you to understand and act according to my unspoken desires. The harsh reality is this: each of us carries our own unique psychological blueprint. We've been raised in different environments, endured different wounds, hold different values. Even two people who deeply love one another, who have shared years together, may still misinterpret each other simply because their internal lenses are fundamentally different. This is why even long-term marriages can unravel over what seem like minor disagreements. Not because of the issues themselves, but because each person sees the world through different eyes. The more we love someone, the harder it is to accept their differences. We want them to mirror us, to think like us, feel like us, react like us, because it makes us feel safer, less vulnerable, and spares us from having to explain ourselves. But this very desire slowly suffocates the other person's freedom, leaving them exhausted, frustrated, and sometimes desperate to break free from our invisible grip. The truth is, in any relationship, the fewer expectations you place on others, the more peace you'll find. When you stop demanding that others fully understand you, you free yourself from needless anger over ignored text messages, sleepless nights over unacknowledged gestures, and quiet resentment over gifts that miss the mark. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean losing connection. In fact, it creates space for relationships to grow on a foundation of freedom, respect, and genuine understanding. When we release the need for others to read our minds, we begin to communicate more openly and honestly. We learn to clearly express what we need instead of waiting for others to guess. We learn to listen to differences rather than trying to correct them. And in that very space of release, relationships are finally allowed to breathe, to expand, and to return to love's purest form. The voluntary choice to walk alongside each other, not out of obligation or emotional debt, but out of a free and conscious decision to remain together day after day. One of the greatest misunderstandings that prevents many people from reaching true inner freedom is the misconception about what it means to let go. When someone advises, just let it go, many immediately equate it with giving up, avoiding responsibility, or becoming indifferent and detached from life and relationships. Because of this misunderstanding, many continue to cling to expectations, persist in control, and silently endure ongoing emotional pain without realizing that they are tightening their own grip on invisible chains. In reality, letting go is not about abandoning love, nor is it about becoming cold and uncaring. Letting go is a profound skill rooted in emotional maturity. It is a conscious choice that arises when you understand that every person carries a completely different life map, and no one is obligated to think, behave, or choose exactly as you expect. They are allowed to be different from you, and those differences do not diminish the value of your relationship. Letting go means stepping away from the role of director in someone else's life, no longer demanding that others memorize what you never fully expressed, and accepting that no one can always live up to your expectations. Therefore, letting go is actually a very advanced form of mature love. It means you still care, you still love, but you also respect the other person's freedom to choose and embrace their individuality. You learn to step back, giving them space to be themselves, even if the path they choose differs from what you believe is right. Love, when accompanied by letting go, becomes purer, lighter, and more enduring. Letting go is not about leaving things to fate or running away from difficulties. Those who truly let go still face issues with courage, still speak up when needed, still offer advice when appropriate, but without becoming attached to the outcome. You share your perspective from a place of genuine care rather than from a desire to control or satisfy your own ego. And afterward, you give the other person full ownership of their choices. Only through letting go can you escape the vicious cycle of negative emotions: hope, disappointment, hurt, and resentment. When you fail to let go, every time someone acts outside your expectations, your old wounds reopen. You grow angry, feel disrespected, unloved. But in truth, most of these emotions are self-generated, born from the standards you impose on others that they neither know about nor can fulfill. Letting go allows you to shift your focus from what should they do to what can I control? And the only thing you can truly control is your own emotional response. When someone doesn't meet your expectations, you can still choose peace. When life unfolds differently from your imagined script, you can still choose grace. You begin to realize that peace does not depend on the world conforming to your desires, but on your ability to regulate your own inner state, regardless of circumstances. At the heart of letting go is deep self-understanding. The more you know yourself, the more you recognize your hidden expectations, the easier it becomes to release them. Without this awareness, you'll remain trapped in invisible emotional battles you unknowingly create and suffer from. Letting go nurtures a purer form of love. You no longer love someone because they consistently meet your expectations, but simply because they are themselves, with all their flaws and differences. You stop forcing perfection on yourself or others. And within that imperfection, the connection between two people becomes more genuine and lasting. Many fear that letting go means losing significance in their relationships. But the opposite is true. When you know how to let go, others feel more at ease around you. They no longer feel pressured to constantly read your mind, to perfectly navigate your unspoken rules, or fear disappointing you with every small mistake. The relationship becomes safer, more open, and filled with empathy. In fact, letting go often builds the strongest bridge between two souls. Everyday life offers endless moments to practice letting go. When a loved one doesn't respond to your message as quickly as you'd hoped, when a coworker forgets something you specifically reminded them of, when your partner fails to recognize your mood on a difficult day. In each of these moments, you face two choices: hold tightly to your expectations and fall into disappointment, or gently release those expectations and preserve your inner peace. Letting go is not something you master in a single moment. It's a skill you practice daily, hourly, moment by moment. And as you practice over time, you'll discover that true inner peace never came from others fully understanding you, but from you deeply understanding yourself and embracing the natural diversity of the human heart. Once we recognize the root of our suffering and fully grasp the true essence of letting go of expectations, the natural question arises: how do we actually practice letting go in our daily lives? Because theory is always beautiful, but reality constantly tests us. Life continually presents us with situations that trigger our deeply ingrained urge to control. And each time, we stand at a familiar crossroads. Do we cling to our expectations, or do we learn to release them? Practicing letting go requires heightened self-awareness in every moment. Expectations and silent scripts running in our minds often operate instinctively, silently, and almost automatically. We rarely realize we're expecting something until we experience disappointment. That's why the very first step is to observe ourselves, especially when negative emotions arise. Every time anger, frustration, or disappointment surfaces, ask yourself, what am I expecting right now? Have I ever clearly communicated this expectation? Or am I simply hoping they will instinctively understand me? That pause for honest reflection becomes the first step toward transformation. Once we can clearly see the silent expectations within us, the next step is cultivating acceptance. This is where we distinguish between letting go and mere silent endurance. Letting go is not about suppressing anger, swallowing frustration, or pretending everything is fine, while resentment quietly builds beneath the surface. True letting go is an active, conscious acceptance. The other person may not respond as I hope, but that doesn't reduce my love, connection, or the value of our relationship. Letting go means smiling at differences, saying to yourself, they may not see things the way I do, but that's okay. In practicing letting go, one of the most effective tools is learning to communicate more clearly and honestly. Many expectations become heavy burdens simply because they've never been voiced. We often assume that people who love us should just know, feel, and sense what we need. But the truth is, no one can read minds, no matter how deeply they love us. Therefore, learn to express your needs openly, with warmth and without imposing. When expectations are spoken aloud, they no longer remain invisible pressures, but become shared understandings or mutual agreements. In addition to clearly expressing your needs, an equally important practice is releasing your need to control how others respond. After you have honestly shared your expectations, but the other person still chooses differently, that moment becomes your greatest test of true letting go. Remember, you have the right to express your desires, but they also have the right to choose their own response. You cannot and need not control their choices. Instead, focus on what you can control, your own reactions. Another highly practical way to practice letting go is by shifting your frame of reference when evaluating situations. Rather than asking, did they do what I wanted? Ask instead, is this really worth sacrificing my peace for? Often, you will realize that what upset you was truly minor, not worth consuming your emotional energy. Maturity lies in discerning which situations require your voice for the relationship's growth, and which can be gently smiled away. With consistent practice, you'll begin to realize that inner peace never depended on everything going your way, but rather on your ability to remain centered no matter how events unfold. You'll feel your mind expand, soften, and grow more spacious when faced with differences, clashes, or unexpected turns that naturally arise in daily life. One wonderful outcome of practicing letting go is that you release others from the pressure of constantly pleasing you. Your loved ones will feel lighter around you. They won't carry the stress of having to guess your thoughts, constantly walking on eggshells for fear of disappointing you. When that pressure disappears, relationships naturally become more relaxed, open, sincere, and breathable. In this safe space, true connection finally has room to flourish and endure. Letting go, much like learning to breathe, seems simple but requires persistence. No one masters letting go in one try. There will be times you find yourself falling back into old emotional patterns, once again feeling frustrated or upset when someone doesn't understand you. But the important thing is that each time you catch yourself a little sooner, return to your breath a little sooner, and release your expectations a little sooner. Over time, you progress on your journey of emotional maturity. And one day, when you look back, you'll realize it was through letting go that your life became more peaceful, your relationships more meaningful, and your connection to your true self more genuine. For only when you are no longer imprisoned by the need for others to fulfill your expectations do you truly become free. After everything we've explored, after confronting the root of suffering, identifying hidden expectations, understanding the true nature of letting go, and diligently practicing this skill in daily life, we arrive at a new, deeper level of realization. The greatest reward of letting go doesn't lie in whether others change, but in the freedom we ultimately grant ourselves. Throughout our lives, countless relationships have fractured under the weight of silent, unspoken expectations built up over many years. There are people who once deeply loved each other, yet quietly drifted apart. Not because love disappeared, but because of the invisible pressure of unmet expectations that were never addressed. Families have been torn apart simply because each person stubbornly clung to their own sense of rightness, hoping the other would think, behave, and choose in the exact way they envisioned. And in so many of these stories, both sides carry pain, those who leave and those who stay, because both feel they tried their best, yet were never truly understood. When we don't know how to let go, we live in a constant tug of war between our ego and our longing to be understood. We exhaust ourselves trying to reshape others, our parents, partners, friends, colleagues, even our own children. We convince ourselves that if they would only change in the way we believe is best, everything would be smoother, the relationship would feel safer, harmony would be restored. But in truth, this endless quest to control is precisely what erodes connection. Every time someone acts differently than we hoped, every deviation from our unspoken script stings us with feelings of being dismissed, disrespected, or unappreciated. Slowly, these seemingly small ruptures widen the distance between hearts. The harsh truth few dare to face is this: no one is obligated to live according to anyone else's standards, not even those who love us most. Each human being is an independent world, carrying unique memories, wounds, experiences, and choices. Only when we begin to truly see this do we understand why control, though exhausting, is such a common trap in relationships. Letting go is the process of relearning how to honor the freedom of others. It's about gradually releasing the role of director of someone else's life, a role we've unconsciously assigned ourselves for years. Instead of focusing on how others should change, we shift inward, asking, how can I maintain peace within myself, even when others choose paths I wouldn't have chosen for them? The first reward of letting go is lightness. When we no longer pour our energy into analyzing, predicting, resenting, or feeling disappointed every time someone acts outside our expectations, our minds naturally become more open, more relaxed. Outbursts of anger fade. Lingering sadness dissolves. We have more energy to live, to enjoy, to love, freely and unconditionally. The second, and perhaps most precious gift that letting go brings is deeper connection with those we love. When there's no longer pressure to constantly please or fear of misstepping, the relationship is reborn on a foundation of emotional safety. People can be fully themselves around us, and we too are free to be fully ourselves. No one needs to force themselves to behave in ways they don't genuinely feel, simply to preserve peace. Ironically, it is this freedom that becomes the strongest bond between two souls. Letting go also teaches us profound humility in love. We realize that what feels right for us may not feel right for others. What brings us happiness may not bring them peace. And what seems perfect to us today may no longer serve us tomorrow. When we grasp this relativity, we stop imposing, stop judging, and stop measuring every action by rigid standards. One day, as you look back at your relationships, you'll see that the most valuable thing was never about who was right, who was wrong, or who changed for whom. The true treasure lies in the simple fact that after all the differences, the clashes, and the disagreements, you and your loved ones can still sit together, smile, listen, accept, and love each other exactly as you are. The highest form of letting go is not indifference. It's the ability to love without controlling. It's when you can open your arms to welcome diversity, accept choices that differ from your own, embrace flaws, and remain untouched by resentment or disappointment. This is the state of emotional maturity, of unconditional love, and of the deepest inner freedom. When you finally learn to let go, you not only release others, you liberate yourself. You no longer carry the exhausting role of the emotional caretaker of everyone else's world. You stop living under the constant strain of waiting for others to understand, to comply, to get it right. And from that moment, you are truly free, living fully as yourself, no longer dragged along by endless, unwritten scripts of expectation. If we look closely at our lives, we'll see that most of the pain, disappointment, and frustration we experience in relationships don't actually stem from others being entirely wrong. Instead, they arise because people don't behave the way we expect them to. We live with countless unspoken expectations toward those around us. Parents should understand us. Partners should read our moods. Friends should always take our side. And children should follow the paths we envision for them. Each of these unspoken expectations, when unmet, quietly pierces our hearts, gradually accumulating into deep wounds. The danger lies in how these expectations operate unconsciously. We don't even realize we're expecting something until we feel hurt. The more we love someone, the heavier the pressure we place on them to fully understand and meet our needs. And this is exactly how relationships that once felt close and intimate begin to feel heavy and suffocating. Many relationships fall apart not from a lack of love, but because both people try to control one another to fit their own version of what's best. But when we develop the courage to let go, everything suddenly becomes lighter. Letting go doesn't mean indifference or abandonment. It means accepting differences, granting others the freedom to be themselves. When we let go, we release the tension of constantly monitoring every action and word of those we love. We learn to communicate openly and honestly, but without clinging to the outcome. And in doing so, we cultivate true inner peace. The deepest lesson we can draw from this is that peace does not come from others doing exactly what we want. It comes from our ability to release the misplaced expectations within ourselves. Once you fully understand this, you'll find yourself less angry, less resentful, and less disappointed. You'll begin to enjoy your relationships with a refreshing sense of freedom and genuine love. In your daily life, whenever you feel anger, disappointment, or sadness because someone hasn't done what you wished, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I expecting? Is it truly worth sacrificing my peace for? Practicing this simple question daily will gradually free you from these invisible chains. If you find value in these lessons, we invite you to join our Success Lessons community, where we continue to share practical, insightful knowledge for your journey of sincere learning, sweet harvest. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to help support us in creating more meaningful, valuable content just for you.